Can we have it all? Is there ever too much? What's the right amount? It's a big question, and I think we need to narrow the aperture a little bit. Can we have it all when it comes to bikes? There's a conundrum bikers face, the N+1 conundrum. The perfect number of bikes is N+1, the current number of bikes you own plus one. But that concept encourages materialism, acquisition, a garage full of stuff you can't fully organize. There's got to be a better way. So can we simplify the experience of biking? And within that, mountain biking. So when it comes to mountain biking, you've got cross country, down country, trail, all mountain, enduro, downhill. The list never seems to stop. I think though that the majority of riders fall into a couple of categories. You've got trail riders who are, people who are really interested in climbing and also some descents but don't want to go crazy on the downhill. And then you've got all mountain enduro style riding where people have heavier bikes that are more capable on the downhills. The bikes are going faster, the features are rougher, the jumps are bigger. A lot of people enjoy both of those disciplines. So can you have one bike that meets the criteria and needs of each of those disciplines? The bike brand Ibis thinks that you can. Enter the Ibis Ripmo. 170 millimeters of travel up front, 150 millimeter travels in the rear, 29 wheels front and back. This bike is something that can do it all. But wait a second, I just told you this was a Ripmo. Why, when we look here, does it say Ripley? That is because Ibis did something cool. Ibis designed this bike where you can remove the rear clevis of the Ripmo or the Ripley and replace it to get the other bike. So it's one frame that can support two different travel configurations, two different experiences of riding. Ibis thinks they've answered the question of, can you have a bike that does it all? In this video, we are going to ride this bike, review it, and see if we agree. Let's check it out.
Okay, so the Ibis Ripley is how I originally got this bike. I got it almost a year ago in this configuration. The Ibis Ripley has 140 millimeters of travel up front and 130 millimeters of travel in the rear. I've ridden the previous generation of Ibis Ripley and I didn't really like it. I felt on the downhills that it was too squirrely, there wasn't enough travel, I didn't really get along with the geometry. This newest iteration has been billed as a more burly Ibis Ripley, more squarely in that trail category. And so I decided that I wanted to give it a shot, and it really lived up to its descriptions online. So on the climbing side of things, this bike feels light, it feels efficient, it goes uphill quickly. It's not quite as snappy as a cross-country bike, but it certainly doesn't feel like a slug, like it's slowing you down in meaningful ways when you're going uphill. And I was pleasantly surprised with how easy it was to go up big climbs. Where the Ibis Ripley really stood out to me and surprised me was on the downhill trails. So obviously this bike does well on the flow trails, on trails that are flat or undulating. You can pump through sections of trail to generate speed. It's quite easy to pop off little features. The bike feels nimble and it feels confident. That part of the bike was not surprising to me, and it was a pleasant experience. The areas where I really were surprised by the bikes were the downhills. Once I got the suspension dialed in, this bike handled really chunky terrain much better than I expected. I set some PRs on downhill trails like Cinderella and Joaquin Miller on the Ibis Ripley, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise since Cinderella by and large is a flow trail for almost all of it except the rock garden section. But still, on the previous generation Ripley, that was not something that was in consideration for me. Even on rougher trails here in the Bay Area, like Chaparral, the Ibis Ripley did quite well. I will say I had to be intentional about my line selection, and I couldn't just slam into really chunky sections of trail the way that I might on a bike with more travel. But over the course of a year of riding this bike, I came to really love it in this iteration. I thought that it was a really well-designed package. The Ibis Ripley, I think, is a complete bike all on its own. I think for a lot of people out there, the need to transform it into a Ripmo isn't really something that you need to contemplate. If you are just trying to have fun on flow trails and even on, technical downhill trails and not trying to go as fast as humanly possible, I think the Ripley is maybe the perfect bike. And I'm a little surprised to say that because I'm somebody who's been riding long travel bikes for the last like 10 or 15 years. Okay, Editor Matt here. I didn't have a clear plan to transition from the Ripley overview into turning the Ripley into a Ripmo, so that's what we're going to do now. Let's check it out. All right, so today we are going to turn this Ibis Ripley into an Ibis Ripmo. It could be simple, it could be complicated. I'm basically going to swap out this fork, we're going to swap out this suspension and the linkage. I'm not super mechanically inclined, so this will be a good test. If you are not a home mechanic, is this easy or should you take it to a shop? I have no idea. Let's find out. It should be pretty straightforward. Okay, so we've moved the whole operation inside because I'm gonna drop bits on the ground. I already know it. I also realized I forgot to weigh this bike in its current iteration. So we are gonna bust out the scale. We're gonna see how much the Ibis Ripley weighs before we put all the new components on it. So let's get into it. This thing weighs, I'm getting 31.7, roughly. Easy. Maybe I could have strung this thing up from that and it would have been easier, it would have been better. That's for smarter people, okay? This is what we get on these videos. I am gonna give up. I'm gonna take this to Sports Basement and I'm gonna have them do it. I'd have to put the star nut in. I gotta like knock something onto the base here. I don't know, man. Guys, I think the important message here is mechanics, bike mechanics are important. Respect your bike mechanics, value your bike mechanics. Don't be like me. Hubris. This is what this is. This is hubris. I'm a man with no technical background trying to do technical things. Look at these parts. God, I don't know what I'm doing. This sucks. This sucks. Don't be like me. All right, very pleased to introduce to you all the Ibis Ripmo. Okay, so I tried to turn this into a Ripmo myself. My mechanic skills are terrible. I got overwhelmed immediately, couldn't do it. So I brought this bike down to the good folks at Sports Basement and they turned it into a Ripmo for me. So what does it mean to turn a Ripley into a Ripmo? So first thing, you've got to change out this little shock piece here, this like mounting clevis thing. Ibis sells this, you can buy it, and it swaps out right here. This turns the rear suspension from 130 millimeters to 150 millimeters. And basically that means that you need to get new suspension components. So I got a coil shock on the rear, 150 millimeter coil shock here. Up front, to match the geometry, you need a longer fork. The Ibis Ripley has 140 millimeters of front fork travel. On this Ripmo build, I opted to go for a 170 millimeter front fork, a Fox 38. The standard Ripmo has 160 millimeters, but you can go up to 170, which is what I've done here. And that is the upgrade. Now we've got the Ripmo. We're gonna go out and ride this thing and see how it does. So with the Ripmo, I have had this in the Ripmo configuration for about a month at this point, and I'm conflicted. So I expected a full-on enduro sled just to be able to plow through some of the roughest sections of trail at warp speed and have no issues. The reality is this bike is definitely more planted and more stable than the Ripley, but the difference between what the Ripley can do and what the Ripmo can do is actually smaller than I thought it would be. And on the flip side, converting to the Ripmo does have some downsides that I wasn't quite expecting, but am experiencing. So one is it is noticeably slower on the climbs. A big chunk of that could be the tire composition. And the result was a bike that felt sluggish on the uphills. And when I was used to these like really sprightly, quick climbs on the Ripley, that was very apparent. The other thing I'll say is that the bike feels a little less poppy, which again shouldn't be surprising. It weighs more, it has components that are heavier, it has components that are designed to soak up more and pop back less. But I was really enjoying on the Ripley the ability to pop, flick, and just do all of these different quick little sort of turns and maneuvers. And on the Ripmo, I can still do those things, but it is not quite as responsive. I'll say on the downhill sections, the Ripmo is definitely more composed and more capable and faster. But again, the delta between the Ripley and the Ripmo is smaller than I thought. I think originally I expected to have one bike that could be two bikes, and it would be very easy to switch from one to the other based on the kind of riding that I was doing on a given day. But the reality that I have discovered is that it's actually, for me, more enjoyable to have one bike that I really click with, that I can ride on a wide variety of trails. And switching over to the other bike isn't something that is just that appealing to me. I expected to like the Ripley less than I did, and to really just like find my home with the Ripmo. It turned out that I really loved the Ripley and have been slightly underwhelmed with the Ripmo. If I get to a place though where I'm hitting exclusively gnarly trails, really steep stuff, I'm really trying to push as hard and as fast as I can go, then I may want to use the bike as the Ripmo because it's better designed for those circumstances. But I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about this platform. You can buy one bike, the Ripley or the Ripmo. If you don't like that particular iteration, or if you're wanting something else from it, you can swap it and have a bike that has a different characteristic. This gets back to this opening question of N+1. What's the perfect amount of bike? Maybe it's one bike that can do two things. It's one bike that is two bikes. Have we answered the question, can you have it all? I still don't know. One thing I'm taking away from this is that maybe we don't need it all. I think the Ripley will work for me. I don't know that I need the Ripmo. I don't know if we can have it all. Maybe a better question is, do we need it all? That's something I'm going to be thinking about. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. If you see me on the trails in the Bay Area, say what's up. I'll see you out there. Did I have it all? Do we have it all? Can anyone have it all? Is it possible to have it all?